Hey everyone, this is the V2 of the carbon fiber Wahoo bike computer mount. I made V1 last video in a build log, so go check that out if you haven't. And I've ridden that mount for around several hundred miles now, through the rain, the dirt, and the road. It's been great. But I made some improvements, so here we have V2. I also improved the mold that we used to make V2, which I'll show you all the iteration process for that as well. So yeah, let's go. Alright, here's the version 2 of the Wahoo mount. Here we have the main body. It's very similar to the first one, but there are some noticeable differences. So first, it's a little thinner. I did 3 millimeters of carbon throughout. I had 4 in the front before for stability, but decided to go down to 3. The main reason is that now we have embedded stainless steel nuts for these screws to latch onto. Before, we were screwing into just carbon fiber, and that wasn't very secure. It's a lot more secure now. I smoothed out the edges here as well. So this used to be a hard cut from this incline here into the handlebar curve, but now smoothed out. It makes installation a lot easier. You don't have to fight that corner. And this hook actually is the same as before. Nothing has changed there. It works very well. This is the top part of the mount. Fairly similar to the last one. Nothing has changed. The hole back here is same as before. The layup is also the same as before. I also smoothed out this corner here, transition, for the same reasons, to make it easier to install, also just to match the bottom, so it works pretty well. This insert goes between the handlebar mount and the handlebar itself, and it's made of TPU, so it's 3D printed, fairly simple. And last but not least, we have a stainless steel screw here to attach everything together. So we could compare this to the version 1 of this mount. This is the version 1 of the mount. Fairly similar. As a little thicker. Has no embedded nuts. You can see some rust here. I've been riding in the rain, and I didn't use stainless steel bolts for this one. From the layup, I have some paper towel stuck on here. Kind of not intentional, but I also can't get it off, so it's here permanently. But very sturdy mount nonetheless. Here's the sharp corner I was referencing earlier. And here's the top for the old mount. Again, some paper towel stuck from the layout. Some rust from the bolt I was using. Here's the bolt. And because there's no embedded nuts, I also needed a nut manually on the other side. So installation of this is a little more difficult, but it works pretty well. The finish is also not as nice. It's not as flat. There's a curvature to it. The new one, with the new layout method, it's a lot flatter, a lot nicer. There's still some pinholes, so it's not perfect, but overall, much nicer outcome. And I guess we could compare it to one more thing. This is the Wahoo mount that came with the Wahoo. Nice and aero, I guess. It's not aero, but it still looks cool. It's cool to say that you made a carbon fiber part, I guess. So I guess now I'll show you the molds that I used to make V2. It's a little different and it's improved. So let's switch over to that. The best way to show you all how I made this is to go through the molds I was using, starting from version 1. So if you all haven't seen the last video I posted where I showed the whole process of making the Wahoo mount, the first version. Go ahead and check that out, or just continue watching here. I'll cover some of those aspects here, but it's much more in detail in the last video. So some of y'all might remember this. This is the mount I used in the first version. Had some issues getting the part out, had to destroy the mold, but ultimately this was the mold used. So took the learnings from this to make the second mold. One of the biggest things was release, so I didn't have to destroy the mold. But yeah, so on to the first revision. So this revision had this outcome. Clearly didn't use this as a mount. Incorporate some new ideas. So first, for more easy release of the part, this top half comes off. This allows me to stick a blade between the mount and the mold to release it. I also embedded just some normal nuts here just to test the theory of using embedded nuts. We could see that the bottom of the part isn't really smooth, and a lot of ridges where the vacuum bag essentially couldn't push down hard enough. And I didn't really like this finish on the bottom. The top finish was okay. There's some gaps here and there, as you can see. So I kind of want to change up how I was vacuum bagging the part. So taking this revision, I had a new idea of having top parts to the mold. So now the mold consists not only of the bottom part, which is gray, but the top part, which is red, which compresses down onto the part while I'm vacuum bagging. As you can see, we have spaces of where the nuts should go. They're just circles, while the nut has edges, but leaving the space should be sufficient. There's some downsides to that. I'll point that out later. I maintain the top removable part, but the design has changed. As you can probably tell in the last part, some of the standoffs were broken. So this is a much more robust method of creating the top part to make removal easier. One thing to note is I didn't extend this top part all the way through. And that's a mistake that I'll be changing in the final mold. The top half has the same kind of design. The red is the top, the gray is the bottom. The hole where the bottom part loops through, this bottom part design is actually the same as the first part, so that worked out pretty well. And on the top half, I just have a gap where the carbon fiber would be. It's a little hard taking this apart with one hand. Okay, well, carbon fiber will sit between the gaps essentially, and the vacuum bag will compress, giving us a fairly smooth surface. So this mold was not successful either for several reasons. So here's the top part. You can see kind of the smoothness that could be achieved. This is where the top part, the red parts join together, leaving a ridge that I'll fix later. So here's the problem. Maybe I didn't put enough mold release on the backside, or I didn't create a top part that has enough leverage for me to pull it out, because you see this is totally smooth. I didn't really have anywhere to grip. I could not remove this top insert from the back here. So this part is kind of failed, but it did prove that leaving gaps for the nuts work out pretty well. Although I miscalculated and these gaps were a little too big, so got some really resin-rich areas and air gaps here. But functionally it works. This was not cleaned up, so you could kind of get an idea of how these parts come out from the mold. They're not perfect. This one's probably a little worse than the others, but yeah, they don't come out super clean. And this also has the 3D printing ledges, I guess, or ridges from the mold, which I sanded in the other versions. So this is, I guess you call version 3. And now let's go on to the last version, This is the final version, which produced the V2 mount that we saw earlier. So we can see this revision is very similar to the last revision. The main mode differences is we don't have the sharp corner here anymore. This is a smooth corner. And the corner I'm referring to is this corner here. So this is curved and smooth, no longer sharp. I changed the back here, which is the same part that was stuck in the old part. I gave it a ledge, which made it much easier in removing this part. And then if we move here, these holes are a little smaller. I fixed the calculations there. We still have somewhat of a resin-rich area. However, here we go. It's a lot better than before. And honestly, aside from just looks, it's functionally fine. Just doesn't look the best, I guess. But it's hard to position the nuts absolutely correct for a mold that's not circle, is a hexagon. So for ease of layup, I just did this instead. Alright, another big difference. This whole top part is removable. So the whole top is removable, including the end. So end here. This made removing the part even easier because I thinned out the front. If I take a wedge between the mold and the part, sometimes this force would break the part itself right here because it's a fulcrum and this is the pivot. And because I'm using 3 layers for the front, and because I'm using parts that pushes down, I no longer have a lot of the ridges that I had before. This provided a lot of strength to prevent this part from breaking when you pry up like this. What happened to this part when I was prying up is this is actually broken. So when I was prying up, I actually broke the part. So making the whole top removable meant I didn't have to pry as hard here because I also had access to the part back here. Made it easier to remove, and it's all in one piece, which is good. So this is not broken. There's a lot of fuzz here. This is from, I put a breather actually around the whole part. I was having issues with sometimes the 3D printed part or the screws that come up through the holes would poke a hole in the bag. So I wrapped the whole piece in a breather. If I have a picture, I'll throw up here of the vacuum bag part as well. But yeah, this is the third and final mold. Or I guess 4th final mold here for the second final Wahoo mount part. I'm not sure if I'll do a follow-up for this, maybe a V3. Not sure. There's some improvements that could be made. For example, this top part here can expand out by itself. So like this, because there's nothing preventing it here. Which meant this part was a little thicker than it should have been, but ultimately that didn't hurt the functionality. So yeah, I might put this last files onto Thingiverse or to some CAD sharing site. So if anyone wants to make this, they could take a shot at it. I'll add the links to the description for that. But yeah, if you have any questions about this, put them in the comments. It's a kind of fun process, several iterations. So yeah, hope you all enjoyed it. Alright, I'll show you all one more thing, which is how to put the actual mount on the bike. I guess it's a little unconventional because there's only one screw and a hook, but it's pretty simple. So you first take your TPU, 3D printed TPU insert, you put that on the bike first. And then you take the bottom half, the one with the plate, and you slide it on in there. Try to line it up with where the insert would go, like this. Alright, and then you take the top part I guess this is a little hard to see, so I'll try to take them out at an angle. So we have a hook here and the top part. So you just hook the top part into the hook and you just push it down and align everything. You take the screw and you just screw it in. So once that's all screwed in, you're pretty much ready to go. So you can just stick your Wahoo, Garmin, or whatever computer you have. It's pretty sturdy. There's a little flex, but nothing too crazy. But yeah, it's not going anywhere. And it holds the computer pretty well. So that is how you install it. Alright, well that's about all I have for y'all today. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Stay tuned for more. I have some other projects coming up related to carbon fiber and also bikes. So yeah, hope to see y'all next time.